All righty. A little bit of fun talking to a deaf dog, right? Figuring out whether they understand it or not. Welcome, everybody. Today is Saturday, December the 17th, 2022. It'll be the last, our last meeting of 2022, and we'll restart again in 2023. It just seemed like the other day we were saying, welcome 2022. And then, I think most everybody kind of, when they think about it, agrees with it. When you're operating in the divine will, just time just doesn't, it doesn't, sometimes you're aware of it, but most of the times you're not. And next thing you know, it's a little bit down the road. So that's interesting. But we're going to finish up today with the theme, the topic that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, I believe. The two missions of Mary and Luisa. We have started a couple of weeks ago by reading the first two appeals that are in the Blue Book, the appeal from Jesus and the appeal from Mary. We've also talked a little bit about the maternal appeal, and we've also, I think, talked a little bit about Luisa's appeal, which is a longer one that's in the Blue Book that we've not read. But why don't we go ahead and do our entering in prayer, and then we'll start out with today's readings. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Come,
with this one, I want you to embrace life.
Every day.
I
I
want to
every word, every action, and all the
things I have to do, all of it. I want all to be in your most holy will. I want to put my whole day right from this instant in your most holy will. But
so that should or should I forget.
God, Holy Spirit, fill us to be faithful, and you didn't come by your love. Send Lord your Spirit, and they shall be created. Remember your promise, which you have. Be with you.
Oh,
Let's talk about the faithful by the light of the Holy Spirit. Grant us to be truly wise and to ever rejoice in His holy consolation. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
we've added a couple of readings, I think, since what was on the remaining list as of the end of last week. And I doubt we'll get through all of them, but for I think everybody on Zoom probably has the cynical notes as well. But whatever we don't get through, obviously, if you'd like to finish up these readings, then you have them in front of you, and you can take the extra time afterward to read through them. I think I started reading this. Bear with me 1 second. My phone will. I'd like to maybe the third reading we have here is volume 20, November 2nd, 1926. Maybe move it up one to the beginning, because he talks to Luisa a little bit about missions and such in this one, and then we'll get back in order, starting with May 1 and going down the list accordingly. So that reading is November the 2nd, 1926.
Volume 20. Sorry, Jan.
Volume 20.
Yeah.
Wow,
Takes my mom. Takes her a long time. It's already. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jen.
I've been holding in here.
Sorry. November the 2nd, 1926.
I'll just listen.
You want us to?
No,
You want Jen to tell a joke for a moment while?
Just
Is it?
Who knows?
Take that long?
Phone has had a reawakening.
Does it really, it takes your phone that long to
Yeah.
pull it up?
No, I can do a round of creation.
While your phone, yeah. Okay,
Before we
It's
get
six-
started, since I don't understand, why is November the second 26 in volume 20 and in volume 36?
Volume 36, is the appendix,
Oh, okay.
so it's always go to the first one,
So
yeah.
I hit the first one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jan, any progress?
Yeah, I got a blank
You got a
screen.
blank
That's,
screen?
that's what always
Okay.
appears before I get to the date.
Are you
I'll show
going
you.
online? Is
Oh,
yours online or is it actually on your phone?
I don't know.
Is it in your iBooks?
Yes.
Huh.
Is that in my phone?
That's on your phone, it should be.
That is on my phone.
My iBooks.
There you go, you know.
Well, you have to look at your phone before you go.
Christmas
Yeah.
here.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay, so that's all in
You
help.
might want to delete your 10,000 emails.
Yeah.
That's my problem.
That's probably. it.
Okay. November the 2nd, 1926. Hiding our acts in the acts of the celestial mama. How these stand in for her. How redemption will no longer serve as food for the sick, but as food for the healthy. It's an interesting
Mhm.
transformation. I continued my living in the divine fiat, and while doing my acts in it, I absorbed light, which, in reflecting itself, made as many threads of light come out, which formed a net of light that extended over the earth in order to catch the creatures. Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, my daughter, every time you go around in my will, you take more light in order to form the net with which to catch the creatures. And do you know what this net is? My knowledges. The more knowledges I manifest to you about the eternal fiat, the more I dispose and enlarge the net in order to catch the souls who must live in my kingdom. And this disposes the Lord to give them to you. When you go around in our will, by virtue of it, your acts become light and extend so much as to touch the divinity and draw more light of truth into the midst of creatures. That's a pretty daunting visual there.
One new knowledge that you attain, another soul is brought into the kingdom. I know that's it's in another writing. So he's just expanding on this more. The more knowledges I manifest to you about the eternal, meaning all of us. So if you're brand new, this is awesome because more knowledges comes to you, more people are coming into the net. The more knowledges I manifest to you about the eternal fiat, the more I dispose and enlarge the net in order to catch the souls who must live in my kingdom, which we know from last week's reading, everybody's gonna live in his kingdom. Either you live it on earth or you do it in eternity, but
And he's, he's also said earlier that it's not until these writings that these knowledges became available. So the expansion of these knowledges out, it makes sense, just as we have great knowledges and then others come to gain knowledges from these videos or these meetings or whatever, or other meetings that people go to, that creates more knowledge, which expands out and creates more opportunity for people that are exposed to come to understand this. Then, while I continued my round in everything that has been done in the supreme will, I arrived at everything that my mother Mary had done in it. And I said to her, Sovereign Queen, I come to hide my little love in the great sea of your love, my adoration toward God in the immense ocean of yours. I hide my thanksgivings in the sea of yours. I hide my supplications, my sighs, my tears, and pains in the sea of yours, so that my sea of love and yours may be one. My adoration and yours may be one. My thanksgivings may acquire the vastness of your own boundaries. My supplications, tears, and pains may become one single sea with yours, so that I too may have my seas of love, of adoration, etc. And just as your sovereign height impetrated the longed for Redeemer with this, I too may present myself before the divine majesty with all these seas in order to ask, to beseech, to implore the kingdom of the supreme fiat. My queen mama, I must use your very life, your very seas of love and of graces, to conquer it and make it concede its kingdom upon earth. Just as you want it over to let the eternal word descend. Don't you want to help your little daughter and give me your seas to make me obtain that the kingdom of the supreme fiat may come upon earth? Now, while I was doing and saying this, I thought to myself, my celestial mama did not occupy herself, nor did she have great interest in the kingdom of the supreme fiat, that it might come soon to reign upon earth. She had interest in the longed for Redeemer, and she obtained him. She did not occupy herself with the divine fiat, which was more necessary, and which was to put perfect order between creator and creature, while it was up to her as queen and mother to reconcile the human will and the divine, so that the divine might reign with its full triumph. At that moment, my always lovable Jesus came out from within my interior, and all goodness told me, my daughter, the mission of my inseparable mama was for the longed for Redeemer, and she accomplished it perfectly.
He's such a good son.
The mission.
The minute you talk about his mom is right there.
Yeah.
And she accomplished it perfectly. However, you must know that everything that both she and I did, its substance, its source, and primary cause. So the substance, source, and primary cause of everything that both Mary and Jesus did was the kingdom of my will. However, since redemption was necessary in order for it to come, though in our interior acts there was the kingdom of the fiat, on the outside we were all intent and occupied with the kingdom of redemption. On the other hand, your mission is exclusively for the kingdom of the supreme fiat, and everything that the sovereign queen and I did is at your disposal to help you, to stand in for you, to give you access to the divine majesty in order to impetrate and ask incessantly for the coming of the kingdom of the eternal fiat. In order for you to receive the good of the longed for Redeemer, you should have done your part. But since at that time you were not there, my mama stood in for you. Now you must stand in for her and in her part for the kingdom of my will.
That's big.
So the mama stood in for the daughter, and the daughter stands in for the mama. More so, since the Queen of Heaven was the first daughter of my will, and because she always lived within our boundaries, she formed her seas of love, of graces, of adoration, of light. Now, since you are the second daughter of my will, what is hers is yours, because your mama keeps you as a birth from herself, and she enjoys that her daughter be inside her own seas in order to impetrate the kingdom of the divine fiat upon earth, so longed for. Therefore, see how abundantly your mama makes up for you, giving you all that is hers. Even more, she feels honored that her immense seas may serve you, in order to infiltrate a kingdom so holy. Afterwards, I was following in the divine will that which Jesus has done in redemption. And my sweet Jesus coming back added, my daughter, my redemption came as remedy for man, and therefore it serves as remedy, as medicine, as food for the sick, for the blind, for the mute, and for all kinds of sicknesses. And because they are sick, they do not enjoy nor receive all the strength it contains, all the remedies which I came to bring them for their good. The Eucharistic sacrament, which I left as food in order to give perfect health, many eat it over and over again, but they remain always sick. Poor food of my very life, hidden under the veils of the accidents of the bread. How many corrupted palates, how many indigestible stomachs that prevent man from enjoying the taste of my food and digesting all the strength of my sacramental life. So they remain sick, and because they are limbs, feverish and evil, they take it with no appetite. This is why I long so much for the coming of the kingdom of the supreme fiat, because then everything I did in coming upon earth will serve as food for those who will enjoy perfect health. What is not the difference between a sick person who takes the same food and another who enjoys perfect health? The sick one takes it without appetite, without taste, and uses it to sustain himself and not to die. The healthy one takes it with appetite, and because he enjoys it, he takes more and maintains himself strong and healthy. So what will not be my contentment in seeing that in the kingdom of my will, everything I did will no longer serve as food for the sick, but as food for the children of my kingdom, who will be full of vigor and in perfect health. Even more, by possessing my will, they will possess my life, permanently present within them, just as the blessed in heaven possess it. Therefore, my will be the veil that will hide my life in them. The blessed possess me within themselves as their own life, because true happiness has its origin inside the soul. And so the happiness which they receive continuously by the divinity holds hands and exchanges the kiss with the happiness which they possess inside. This is why they are fully happy. In the same way, the soul who possesses my will have my perennial life within her, which will serve as her continuous food. Not once a day like the food of my sacramental life. In fact, my will make a greater display and will not be content with giving itself once a day. Rather, it will give itself continuously, because it knows that these have pure palates and strong stomachs to be able to enjoy and digest in every moment the strength, the light, the divine life, and the sacraments. My sacramental life will serve as food, as delight, as new happiness for the life of the supreme fiat, which they will possess. The kingdom of my will be the true echo of the celestial fatherland, in which, while the blessed possess their God as their own life, they receive him into themselves also from the outside. Therefore, inside and outside of themselves, they possess divine life and they receive divine life. You know, we said and talked about and discussed that the difference of sacraments, which he's reiterated through these last several pages, about when you're living in the divine will, not of the divine will, or not operating of the divine will, the sacraments are, like he said, he started this off as food, as medicine, as nourishments, as help and aids. But he's reiterating it here as we've had in these other discussions. When we operate it of God and we operate of the divine will, then all that converts from a medicine and aid to nourishment, to fuel us further. And it's continuous. It's not just that once a day. What will not be my happiness in giving myself sacramentally to the children in the eternal fiat, and in finding my own life in them? Only then will my sacramental life have its complete fruit.
I think another way to say that, we receive the Eucharist and the goods of redemption are in the Catholic Church in the sacraments. And we received them because we were still, he's told us that we were still so unhealthy. Like when he came and walked with the apostles, they didn't even know the ABCs. So they were still very ill in just knowledge. They had a broken knowledge. And another way to say this is what we always say, but another understanding of this, or another way to present this, because he's not telling you not to receive the sacraments or that you're done receiving the sacraments, is that when you receive the sacraments, you are now complete and you are given the fullness of glory back to God the Father. And so he doesn't just give it to you when you receive the sacraments, but it's continuous. He's continuously, because you're continuously living in the divine will. You never leave the divine will. You've given your fiat, you're there. So he's telling us in this writings, Mary's oceans, her seas have taken all your acts and they've done what, made them complete, pure and holy. And therefore you give them the fullness, giving God back to God. And so we have talked about this. The greatest part of the Mass is during the consecration. He's consecrated the bread and wine, but when he holds it up and he says, through you, with you, and in you, through the Holy Spirit's, all glory and honor is yours, God the Father. That's what he's saying now. When God the Father looks down at you, he says, through them, with him, and in them, with the unity of the Holy Spirit, all glory and honor is given to you, God the Father. So think about that, right? Because before, when you received in the Eucharist, it was coming into you to heal you, to get you knowledge, right? Knowledge heals you, right? Light and heat heals you, knowledge heals you. The more and more and more that you know, the more you become healed. You're healed now. And now he's saying continuously, you're never out. Just like the blessed in heaven, on earth as it is in heaven, it is now you walking continuously. And Jesus is saying the same words as the priest. Of course, it's him as the priest. Don't get that confused. But he's lifting you up and saying,
because there's two. One is time and circumstance. So the sacraments and redemption were for time and circumstance.
Right.
Now living in the divine will, you're in eternity.
Right.
So that's why it's continuous.
Continuous, yeah.
Before it was time and circumstance. If you sinned, you needed on earth. Living
And then.
not of the divine will, then you sin, you go to confession, that's for nourishment, that's an aid, that's medicinal for time and circumstance, is how I kind of understand
No,
it.
you're right, right.
Now, but it wasn't meant for that.
Never.
Jesus came to establish his kingdom.
Right.
In doing so, he established his church. And at that time and circumstance, it was medicinal purposes. But the whole gist of it was for right now,
Right.
was for living in the divine will. So that's why we don't say, oh, well, the church is null and void. No, that's what it was always for, but it was for all of us to live in the eternal now. So that's why it's a continuous, because you're in eternity. You're now no longer just praying for time, you are past, present, and future.
Yeah.
We're with the blessed, but we gain more because we're doing it this side of death.
Right. We can suffer.
Well, we can suffer, but we also have acts. We get to do
Right.
our acts, increase our capacity. If you have died, you no longer get to do that. You're in full glory, as we just read,
Sure, but you can't expand.
but you can't expand. We can glorify them more, but they can't do anything more.
Mm-mm.
What you've done you're done and then, but that's how I understand.
No, you're
The
right.
continuously.
Saving souls, yes.
That's why you don't have to, it's nice to always say, Jesus, I unite myself in this act, right? He wants to hear it. He wants us to verbalize and be in that moment. So that's why it's continuous, because you're no longer just living in time and circumstance. We're in eternity,
Yeah. Welcome.
just this side of it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
that's how the switch happens, or that's how I understand it. I don't know if that's correct.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Well, it's happening on, going back to the Our Father. It's happening on earth as it is in heaven. It's not necessarily the same as heaven, but it is on earth as it is in heaven, and it is as it was intended.
No, you're right. It is on earth as it is in heaven, like Michelle said, only the difference is that we get to do acts and they don't get to do, they're still doing acts. Their acts don't attain what ours
Right.
attain. And a lot of it is because they can't suffer. So you can suffer in your acts. You can be face to face with someone who's doing something to you or having a thought. You're so many references to that in the writings. You're blocking the throne so nothing reaches the throne. You're protecting, you're praying for all, you're able to do right then. They're still doing acts.
But
But we're not.
we're drinking coffee, we're
Absolutely.
doing this, we're doing all of our acts that should have been done in the divine will on earth.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, if they're drinking coffee up there, praise the Lord.
I'm thinking they're eating ice cream, Michelle. Don't take that away from me.
I don't know, but.
Okay,
Right?
what will not be my happiness in giving myself sacramentally to the children of the eternal fiat, and in finding my own life in them? Only then will my sacramental life have its complete fruit. And as the species are consumed, I will no longer have the sorrow of leaving my children without the food of my continuous life. Because my will, more than sacramental accidents, will maintain its divine life, always with its full possession. In the kingdom of my will, there will be neither foods nor communions that are interrupted, but perennial, and everything I did in redemption will no longer serve as remedy, but as delight, as joy, as happiness, and as beauty ever growing. Therefore, the triumph of the supreme will, of the supreme fiat, will give complete fruit to the kingdom of redemption.
I never was always meant to ponder that. I will no longer have the sorrow of leaving my children without the food of my continuous life. Never pondered that was the sorrow of his that he had to leave.
And when he can do that, it says it a little higher here, my sacramental life will have its complete fruit, which is perennialness and continuousness.
Mhm.
But in the context of missions, Mary's mission was to get all this started, so to speak, by bringing Jesus into the world and together creating this pathway to the final fruit, which is operating in the fiat of sanctification.
And this brings to my mind, though, if Adam had not sinned, then how would all of this have happened? Is there a discussion of that in the knowledge?
He does say that he. Thanks, Sean. He does say he still would have come, he would have come in glory,
She would have been queen.
and she still would have been queen.
But how that would have happened?
I don't know if it would have been a birth or how he would have,
Okay.
guess we'll find out in heaven.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But we all still are the,
Because we're finishing up. I mean, we're moving back to where Adam left off. So.
We're just trying to get help
yeah, we'll
Papa
see how
find finished creation so we can
Mhm.
rest.
that-
It's a
And
long,
have the fruits of redemption completed.
exactly,
That's what he just said, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
And he doesn't do incomplete work, so.
no. So it'll happen. And then they can rest.
but because we all have our own acts, our litany, our accumulation of acts from our birth to our death, that we've talked about before, that's our own kingdom. And we're kings. We are our own king or our own lord. We have dominion over that kingdom. So King of Kings, Lord of Lords, either through redemption or through non-redemption, and he would have come and still would have been King of the Kings and Lord of the Lords. And the kingdoms that he would be over would be our kingdoms who would have been presented back up to him in honor and glory, which is ultimately where we're trying to get back to.
Mhm.
We just took a detour.
Yeah,
So that everyone can have their kingdom, not just those of us today living in the divine will, but everyone's acts will have been done as they were intended in their own kingdom.
and God will have 100%
Participation.
return
Mhm.
of every one of those acts that he created.
Mhm. Mhm.
There is a link there in my mind, obviously. I mean, he created all this, so he should have, there should be enough respect to give him honor and glory back for all that he did when you think about all that he's done, and not just what goes on in our own personal lives every day. Just to let us.
Are you sort of saying there's walls created between your individual kingdoms, or I think I was listening before, but I thought your will was merged with Mary's will, and it was a sea that encompassed
You have the,
not so much the dilution of your will, your acts, but the encompassment of everything else that was in there.
in the operating of the divine will, you have the ability to access, because you're part of Mary's acts, and Mary is part of mine. But I still have my long file cabinet of all those
Acts that were
cells
just
that were done,
issued out to
that
him.
were specific for me to have done. And my responsibility for every one of those acts, I've talked about I've used for me, the example of how the cells that are used to make a cartoon, one, and then they change the next one, they change the next one, and they put motion to it, and that's how my arms go up for Mickey Mouse and whatnot. But our life, I know that's a very simple view of this. Chuckling.
So you're on the right level.
But my whole life consists of the every one of the acts that God created for me that causes me to do what I'm doing now, to also to breathe, for my heart to beat. Every one of those is a single unit, and that's mine. And the intention was that for every one of those acts, that's why we talk about breathing and blinking of eyes, and as well as thoughts and everything else. Every one of those acts was intended to be given back to God with the same love and honor and glory by which he created them for us. But what happens is I've got all these acts, and with the fall of Adam, now these acts are not being given back to God. The stiff arm, some are being tried, but within the context of our human will to try to be given back. And he knows that not everybody through the course of their life is going to be able to or will repair the acts that were done. But by operating in the divine will, I have access to Mary's box. She has access to my box. You have mine. And for everybody's box, because in operating in the divine will, we are part of all creation. I can go into this box now and say, God, I give you love, honor, and glory for these acts that were not done to you. I can also say, this is the concept of doing around. I can also say for everybody that ran a red light and or got caught at a red light and cursed your name, across all those boxes, I want to give all those group of acts up to you with love, honor, and glory. It's how, your rounds are however, but the whole point is to give him love, honor, and glory for every single act that he's created from Adam to the last man. And in the process of doing that, we get all these knowledges, and the knowledges create dewfall, and the dewfall they use, we've talked about, to fall on everyone, past, present, and future, to keep the creatures in an environment where when knowledges come, they can think about them and maybe incorporate them, and they become bigger and larger as the kingdom is expanded. That's my little 2 cents on it, but.
No, you're right.
After that.
You're not. I think that he asked about the walls. You do have walls that protect your soul, so nothing can enter. But they give you access to the divine volition, and then when you access into the divine volition, you have all the acts of Blessed Mother and our Lord. So when they came, they lived perfectly in the divine will. And as Mel just said, they were the first ones to repair, redo, and reorder every single act of every single creature from Adam fallen to the last one. And now God is asking us, like, I'm giving you a gift where now George and Patty and all of us can now enter into this divine volition, into the divine will. And we too can repair, redo, reorder as for our brothers and sisters. And that is the true meaning of love your neighbor as I have loved you. Repair and redo them. So that when you repair and redo them, when your neighbor is entering into the eternity, they get to see all their acts done in light, because they were already done. Everybody's going to see their kingdoms. And it might just be that they only need to do one act in the divine will, God tells us, just one. That one act could be saying yes to your death, and therefore all is complete. He just needs you to do one act in the divine will, and then all is done. Doesn't mean that you won't spend a little time maybe in getting dusted off in purgatory, but it does mean that your acts will be all light, and that will be your kingdom. So then you have dominion over your kingdom, over your acts, lordship over your acts. And so now living on in the terrestrial as a celestial being, that sounds kind of, but you are the celestial now because you have entered into the celestial family. You are repairing, redoing, reordering for all acts, but all your acts are generating, and then you are regenerating for all others. Because all of their acts lost the divine life that they were supposed to have. They lost what they were supposed to give to God when God had created them. When they created Mary Berger, God gave me a certain amount of acts that I was going to do throughout my life. And when I wasn't living in the divine will, then those acts laid flat. They were dead. Jesus came, Mary came, they redid them. Now Luisa came and she redid them. And through Luisa and sanctification, we get to redo all those acts. So we take an act and we can multiply it, whatever we want to do. Michelle had mentioned earlier, throughout the day, fuse yourself, remind yourself of the fusion between you and Jesus. Driving my driving, eat my eating, speaking my speaking. This is your cynical, Lord. Speak through the cynical, what gives you praise, honor, and glory back, all that throughout the day. And really, it's not unfamiliar to us who are Catholic. This is something that's very familiar to us, right? We have consecrated ourselves to Jesus and Mary throughout our lives. So we do the same thing, consecrating, but he just wants you to, throughout the day, remind yourself of what you're doing. Remember what you're doing. Remember what you're doing. And so this reading, Jesus tells us that Mary's seas of love, power, and wisdom, her seas encompass all of your acts. So even if you were, whatever, they're done fully in the divine will. You gave your fiat, they're done. Mama is the best mother ever, and she takes care of her children. But to your point, yes, we have our walls. We are our own individual souls. He tells us that. That's the book of Revelation. That's Isaiah. That's the measuring of the temple. He needs to measure your temple to be the same size as his temple so that they're equal, the same. So yes, you have walls upon your soul. If I think that's what you were asking, your own temple. Did I just confuse the world? I feel like
No, another way of what comes back
similar,
at you
sure.
is before you were, there's a plan for you. And those acts that you're referring to, whether you've accomplished them or not, eventually they will be accomplished through the divine fiat, if I'm understanding.
That's correct.
That's exactly. right.
You're absolutely.
And then, but I'm so sorry,
Go ahead,
I
go
did.
ahead. I'll wait for you.
This is what gives all of us parents, spouses, sisters, siblings, children. And I didn't want to just say hope because, I mean, but it is faith, knowledge. That the moment that your loved one is there at the moment of their death, all those Hail Marys, Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death, all of that is the grace surrounding that soul. So that soul says, yes, my Lord, to your to my death. And because he tells us, you only need one act of my divine will. I'm a squishy, loving God. Just do one act of my divine will. I gotcha. And you say yes, fiat voluntas tuae, you will be done. You say yes to the death, you're all done. All your acts, all the acts have been redone and everything. You're going to see all sons. There's your path. We get to see those sons now, but because we're doing it, we're the ones doing it, so we can see them. We know what's happening. They'll know at the moment of their death. I mean, those prayers, everything that has been gathered up, they're not wasted.
Nothing's
Absolutely not wasted. You were done, repaired, we did all of those prayers, every rosary, everything. Everything. In the Exodus, I love this, in the Exodus, we learn through Francis Hogan, it was a 2-week journey from Israel to Egypt. Egypt to Israel was a 2-week journey. If you went through where the Philistines were living, but the Hebrews were slaves. And so slaves never owned weapons, nor would have known how to use a weapon. So God said, you're gonna have to take the long way, not 40 years, 6 weeks. Should have taken 6 weeks to get to Jerusalem. It took him 40 years because he kept sinning. But when you're a slave, you don't have weapons because you are a slave. We know that the rosary is our weapon. We get told it over and over again. So children of light, we're taking these rosaries that are weapons and we're using them to what? All the rosaries ever prayed. We get to complete them. We get them to full glory. Anything that they were lacking, and we get to place them with our Blessed Mother's rosary. And that is the weapon that will conquer this so that people will exit their human will into the divine will. So be it here on earth, or it will be the moment of their death. All those Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now at the hour of our death. All those are graces surrounding every single soul. So they say yes at the moment of their death. Fiat voluntas tua, and it is done. All of our acts are weapons that are going in, surrounding all the acts of all of our brothers and sisters, and making them whole, complete acts so we can give to God what is due to God. It is a gift that you can't even describe, even though I just spent probably 5 minutes on it. It's still just so trying to comprehend it. We're comprehending as best we can with the knowledge that he's given us. But again, he doesn't allow us to see it. So everything in the completeness, because we would become prideful. And he's protecting us. So yeah, your soul is very much walled up, that nothing come in and hurt it. You gave your fiat, God has walled it up. He's allowing you to do what he's given you to do. The gift for everybody. Every soul, no one is excluded.
What I love is that it starts out by saying hiding our acts in the act of the celestial moment. All of our acts that we now know, that we are now doing, are hidden. And only we know it. And the joy and peace that it brings is insurmountable because we know what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We know how we're honoring, glorifying, adoring, thanking God on the scale that he gave it to, that he issued to us. That's a hidden joy that you get to keep to yourself. I love that.
Yeah.
Nobody else knows. As we're driving down the road and somebody cuts me off, I now say, I don't know what they're going through, Jesus, but you do, and I pray for them. I never did that before. I'm from New Jersey. Do you want to know what I mean? You the peace and the joy that comes from being able to pray for somebody who just did you wrong.
And to substitute for all the people who have. ever-
Exactly, but it's hidden. Nobody else knows what we're accomplishing.
Let me say
Here.
thank you now. Lynn.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should have heard about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think is really cool is that like Habitat for Humanity and all of these groups around the world that do wonderful works for humanity and for people, but now we're doing them all in the divine will. We can redo and repair all of those outside Christianity, even groups of people that do good in the world, but they're just not honoring God in their good deeds, I guess is the
Well,
word.
yeah, I'd say they're honoring him from
No, we are,
the human perspective,
right.
what he wants and what he needs. And this is this is a concept that we all should understand and need to understand. What he wants us to do is to honor him on his scale, the divine scale. Because honoring from the human scale, it's not bad. It's not, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that he makes the distinction between honoring from our own will versus honoring from the divine will, which creates the scale by which those that when we say we love you, we honor you, we adore you, we glorify you, it is on the same scale by which he issued creation at. So he's getting back on the same scale as what he issued. All of the other good that's being done is still good, and there's no disagreement about that at all. He just says there is a difference, and these human acts and these human honors and these human adorations, because they are of the human will, then their life is only short-lived. It's that act. It's alive when it happens, but then it doesn't survive anymore. That act, when it is done in the divine will, it continues to be an act. It never dies. And that's where, when it's on his scale, that's what the infusion of his will into that act, what it allows to happen is that it stays alive forever. And in the eternal world, that act is happening all the time.
Well, one of the things.
Celestial world.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
One of the things that I love is just all these devotions that he's given to us over time that you can now do in the divine will. And one that's come to my heart is there's a devotion to his holy face, and you do this devotion to prepare for the acts of communism and atheism. And so every time I do that, and I just think about, I see Putin in the news and all the stuff that's going on in the world, and I just think to myself, God's given us this tool to connect and to be like, I got you, and to connect with these things that are still going on in our world, but through the divine will has given us the power to just reach in there and say, you are still Mary's child. You are still Jesus's child. And he's given us the tools to help and to be a part of it.
To complete redemption.
Yeah.
They're right, he's given us 2,000 years for redemption to get us through some major battles that we've gone through. And so this is the definition, everything that Mel just explained, it's the definition of St. Louis de Montfort in the end times. The saints of the end times will be greater saints, not because you're doing greater things, because your act is full of the divine will, and you're doing for all. So you're doing in the divine will all those devotions. So even the great saint that was given us the devotion of the sacred face of Jesus, or the 5 wounds of Jesus, or the surrender one, or the Immaculate Heart of Mary, or the Sacred Heart of Jesus, all those, they're thanking you because you now are in completeness doing that devotion which they started. You've completed it. You are completing redemption. You're doing what they were doing in redemption only you're completing it because they were doing it in a lack of knowledge, which is the healer. They're doing it and you have knowledge of it.
Right, but of course, Jesus knew all this,
Oh, of
so
course.
he knew that he was planting all these things. So that when the divine will came along, all these things were already there. It could be brought to fruition in the divine will.
There's a reading, Angela, that I should have it memorized, so I'm gonna work on that to have it memorized, but it's after Adam sinned, God was gonna wipe out the world.
Mhm.
The sun went into itself, everything, all of creation just backed off because they were created for man, and man just made himself lower than them. And Jesus stood in front of God and said, and showed him the wounds and said, we got this. Us and the children of light, we got this.
Mhm.
You know, it's an incredible, like,
Yeah,
I'm now the redeemer. I got my children,
yeah.
you know.
I think I just passed through that. I think it's in 26.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm not sure, but
But it's an incredible reading that you
Yeah.
sit there and just like, you know, the
Mhm.
knowledge of that in itself, right? Because it's people about, you know, why did he let Adam sin? Why did it, all this why questions? And now you have this knowledge of God standing in front of the Father saying, we got this, and all the children of light were coming. And he waited 6,000 years to give us Luisa so that we could come into the generation of repair, redo, reorder for all of our brothers and sisters.
Mhm.
And it's so massive that you can't even like comprehend the immensity of it, but you're doing it.
Yeah.
George, did you get your,
Question.
all
answered?
your question answered? Do you want to, you want to re-ask or anything
I've
else?
got so many more questions that
Oh,
don't fit right
Ask
now.
what?
No, now's not the time.
he always says,
But it's interesting that, so I'm sorry, somebody else have a question on?
Yeah, this is Nadira. I just have a question. In terms of God resting. So at this point, we're giving glory back to God for us, all of us living in the divine will. So is God resting at this time, and is creation in our hands as we are continuing to sanctify creation? Is he resting at this point now because he's receiving the glory back that he deserves from his children of light?
it is a good question, but of course he's eternal, so he's always been resting,
Mhm.
right? Because he's outside of time, so he's not waiting until we come in to finally rest. But everything's going to be resting, all creation, everything will come to rest, even us.
Because of
Even us.
time and circumstance in
Right.
2022 and everyone taking their kingdom into living in the divine will, then he rests in each one of us individually,
Right,
correct?
correct.
Because we're each a kingdom.
Yeah,
And we
that's
have the 6 days of the 7th day, and then the 8th day's completion, right?
Right, so if you think about
We
it.
each have our own sun, we each have our
Yes.
own stars, we each
Yes.
have, yes.
Every single soul in the, from Adam to the last soul has to go through the 6 days of creation. Every single soul has to go through, the soul has to go through the 6 days of creation so that God can rest. We are now given the gift where man can be created in the image and likeness that God had created us. That's the gift of Luisa Picaretta. Children of light can now be the fullness of the image and likeness, and God can now rest in these souls.
Mhm.
So yes, to your question now, the children of light, he is resting in our souls, the completion of the 7 days of creation, but there will be a time where he is fully at rest in creation. And then,
And
of
it's
course,
completed.
and because he is eternal, because he's God the Father, he is already
Mhm.
resting. It's all done.
It's all
Yeah,
done.
because
We're all.
in
it's
the
all done.
prime act has already been issued, therefore he is resting.
Yes.
But in the terrestrial side, there's even a reading, again, I'm like you, I forget the date
That's
itself.
okay.
But Jesus talks to her about, you know, an outcome of our growth in the divine will ultimately is he wants us to create a shelf in our soul where he can come and rest. So he takes rest in the terrestrial world in our soul, which obviously gives rise to our body being a temple, because he can only rest in the temple, and that's an outcome of what happens. And it's that exercise of, as we go further and further and further down this path, and we get stronger and stronger in our knowledges, and then that shelf becomes stronger, but he can come in and rest with us. And the only way to do that is through him. And as Mary said, where we have the image, but we need, what we're seeking is to acquire the likeness.
It's the New Jerusalem coming down from heaven.
And think, and again, think about, I'm gonna digress just a moment. But we've talked about the cells, we've talked about the file cabinets, we've talked about one for each one of us. From Adam to the end that God created, all those acts is part of the creation of the prime act. And when Jesus, when he became incarnated from in the womb until his death, he redid every one of those acts. Every act that ever was that God ever created, Jesus repaired it and redid it. And Mary did the same thing. And so that's why they're C's match. That's why she is who she is. Luisa was chosen, as he mentioned in the early part of this reading, to be, her mission was to bring forth the fiat of sanctification and allow the common person, for us to be copied, as Mary says, for us to be copies of her, to be able to, so that we can redo and repair in the same way these acts and bring them to Mary and to Jesus and to fill in their seats. And the only way God can get that is through Jesus, right? So the only way to the Father is through the Son. That's the only way that you can get through to the Father is through the Son, by virtue of being part of these repaired acts. And even he loves us so much that even to the very end, where he says, I'll even give you one more chance when you're dead, or in the hour of your death. If you just say yes, no matter what you've done all your entire life, if you just say yes, you accept your death as a part of my will, then I will allow you to come into the kingdom. You've got to dip the dust off and go through the purging process. But he's willing to do that. And that's not new information either, because he tells the parable of the laborers, right? 8 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, they all get paid the same wage so long as they wanted to come work. It's the same thing. And so it's an incredible opportunity, and but nobody knew about it until these knowledge became available.
I have one comment.
And
I went to adoration one day and I saw one other man in there reading a book, and he was reading the blue book. And I thought, wow, that just kind of caught my attention, because you just never know, I guess, who is actually participating in the divine will. I don't know who he was. I guess he's a member of our church, but that net, that light, that net that we keep casting out has grown, because I've actually, in that adoration room is where I was introduced to come to the divine will. Not that that even matters, but that net that God is throwing out, that light, is out there and working and gathering people in. So I was glad to see that.
yeah, there is a reality to this, that if you, again, being repetitive, but if you stop and slow down, as he's asked us to do, and to be aware and be attentive, you can see the reality of what's going on in creation all around you. And it manifests itself in such a many ways.
And the beauty is that we can come to know that she's fused with Jesus.
Right. Okay. Should we go to our next reading? And that one was May the 1st, 1925. May 1, 1925. Janet, can you just hit like redo and it'll go back so you don't have to wait, or?
No, when I hit that, it goes out entirely.
May 1, 1925.
I like the title.
You volunteered, what did you say?
No, I like the title.
Who would like to read this?
I'm happy to read. Is everyone ready? The three unique missions
the mission of the humanity of our Lord, the mission of Mary, most holy, the mission of Luisa, firstborn daughter of the divine well. I was thinking about the many things that my beloved Jesus has told me on his most holy will, and some doubts arose within my soul, which is not necessary to write on paper. I will only say that my highest good told me, my daughter, in certain missions or offices, such gifts, graces, riches, and prerogatives must be enclosed within them, that if it isn't for the mission or the office occupied, it would not be necessary for one to possess the whole magnitude of what he possesses, which has been given to him because of the necessity to carry out that office. My humanity was given by my divinity the mission of salvation of souls and the office of Redeemer by redeeming them. Because of this office, I was entrusted their souls, their pains, their satisfactions. So I enclosed everything. And if my humanity had not enclosed even just one soul, one pain, one satisfaction, the office of Redeemer would not have been complete. I would not have enclosed within myself all the graces, the goods, and the light, which was necessary to give to each soul. And even though not all souls are saved, this says nothing. I was to enclose the goods of all, so that on my part, I might have the necessary and superabundant graces for all, in order to be able to save all. This was befitting to me for the decorum and the just honor of my office of Redeemer. The same happens to the sun, which is above your horizon. It contains so much light as to be able to give light to all. And even if not everyone wanted to enjoy its light, because of the unique office of sun which it has, it possesses even that light which creatures might refuse. If this was befitting to the sun, because it was created by God as the unique sphere which was to warm the earth and embrace it with its light. In fact, when one thing or one office is unique, in order to be able to carry out its office, it is necessary for it to contain so much of that good as to be able to give it to all without exhausting one atom of it in giving it to others. Much more befitting was it to me, who was to be the new sun of souls, who was to give light to all and embrace everything with my light, to be able to bring them to the supreme majesty and to offer it in act which would contain all acts, and to make superabundant light descend upon all in order to place them in safety.
Which that gets back to my question before, what in a certain way anyway, of about, how would it have worked if Adam never had sinned? How would Jesus have come? What would be Mary's role in that situation? But this kind of goes back to saying the same thing, that in talking about what it would have been like. Jesus, like the Son, had all those acts covered for all people. And if Adam had never sinned, all of those acts would have been given back to the Father as they should have been. So he's saying, hey, I had all those acts in me from the beginning. When we decided to do creation, all of those acts by all creatures done properly in a way to give back to God all the glory that we should give back to him for creating man. And so he did that. He did it again, even though Adam had sinned. He did all those acts. He all those acts go back. But he does say, the caveat is, even though all are not saved. It started out in this one paragraph, wherever it is.
Yeah.
And I think the distinction there is the act and the actor. That may not be, let me explain it this way. Jesus redid the acts so that all the acts that God created come back and give the glory. The actor still has to make that decision about the acts that are in there that they have dominion over, which, as we talked earlier, can be up to the very last, the last act of at the hour of their death. So it's and it goes back to what we're doing is we're repairing and redoing as we do our rounds and as we live and give back to God all these acts, we're giving him the results of the acts. The individual still has to make that decision for themselves and has to make that acceptance for themselves.
Well, and that's one of the things that I reflect on every Wednesday and Friday when I do the Sorrowful Mysteries is when it talks about in the 24 hours of the Passion, that was the thing that hurt Jesus the most in the garden, was that knowing even though he had done everything, suffered everything was perfect, some people would still say no.
Yeah.
And not because of any deficiency of his suffering or of his ability to redeem, but because of exactly what you're saying, they would still say no up until the end.
But he loves them enough, he loves us enough to still provide those opportunities,
Right,
even up until the end.
right.
Which that's called the last catch, that reading is, I think, in 35 or 36. About.
It's the last reading or the
the
second to the last reading.
The moment of up to the
But
moment.
then he also loves you enough to allow the gift of the free will.
Right,
You
Right.
choose.
Can't have both.
yeah,
I'm not gonna enslave you. I'm not gonna force you as Satan does to
right,
choose me.
right,
You still get to. I mean, sorry for them, right? And
For sure.
sorrow for him. But yeah, he doesn't take away the gift of the free will ever.
right.
But there is that aspect of this because we live in eternity that we are going back and praying for those very same people.
Right, so
That
that
may
they
have
die.
died thousands of
They can
years
say
ago.
yes.
Yes, to dispose them to say yes,
Right.
because we pray for all souls, past, present, and future, when we're doing the rounds.
And you
Because-
bring them onto the throne.
Yeah.
You can't, you don't, because when Jesus ascended to heaven, he brought all souls with him when he ascended into heaven to show the Father that I'm bringing all souls, I've redeemed all souls. And
That's the
then,
cool thing about thinking that we're doing this in eternity, like in no
Yes.
time and circumstance. So we are covering for all souls, past, present, future, so that when they lived BC, when they died, and they went down and then he scooped them up, they say yes, like, I want to go with you.
Right.
Heaven wasn't open for
They
Jesus,
receive
so.
the dew fall, the grace.
Yes.
Right.
And when Jesus redid the acts,
love,
when
Yeah.
Jesus redid these acts, every act has a grace or a fruit or a good, pick your word, he uses them all, pick the one that's meaningful to you. It has a grace associated with it or a fruit associated with it. And when he went through and redid everything, he released those goods, but they're suspended. So the good that was intended for all these acts are suspended. And it's through our redoing of acts that those acts now, those goods can be used by the Trinity to create the dewfall that will hopefully keep the arms around mankind over time, so that when they get to their point of being able to say yes, they will.
Well, and it just makes me hope, that every parent who's ever had a child who committed suicide, or every parent who's ever had a child that died away from the faith comes into the divine will, because it just will give them so much hope that there's so much that can still be done, because when you're acting out in eternity, there is no too late.
I always say about my children, they're really stupid, but they're not obstinate.
Yeah.
Mama Mary knows how to handle stupid.
Yeah.
But also our acts, we were talking about, think about the children, our babies that were born miscarried, or
Yeah.
children that were aborted. They had a certain amount of acts that they were supposed to have done as well. And you're doing those acts for them. Those have to return back to God as well.
Mhm.
That their lives were cut short, in any manner.
Right.
That they're doing it. There's so that, those are part of the suspended acts as well that you get to dive into, and like for every soul,
Yeah.
it's bigger than what we ever could cover within the 2 hours we do on a Saturday, the immensity of the acts that you're redoing and repairing. So just to know that you're doing it, you know, just repairing, redoing, reordering, and even just doing, because right, aren't you just doing your acts and then doing acts for the others? Generate and regenerate are the two words.
In addition to myself, there was my celestial mama who was given the unique mission of mother of a son sun god in the office of co-redemptrix of mankind. For her mission of divine maternity, she was enriched with so much grace that all that belongs to the other creatures, both celestial and terrestrial, united all together, will never be able to equal her. Drop the mic. But this was not enough to draw the word into her maternal womb. She embraced all creatures. She loved, repaired, adored the supreme majesty for all in such a way as to accomplish herself alone all that the human generations owed God. So in her virginal heart, she had an inexhaustible vein towards God and towards all creatures. When the divinity found in this virgin the requital of the love of all, it felt enraptured and formed in her its conception. And as she conceived me, she took on the office of co-redemptrix, and she took part in, embraced together with me, all the pains, the satisfactions, the reparations, the maternal love toward all. So in the heart of my mother, there was a fiber of maternal love towards each creature. This is why when I was on the cross in truth and with justice, I declared her the mother of all. She ran together with me in the love, in the pains, in everything. She never left me alone. If the Eternal One had not placed so much grace in her as to be able to receive the love of all from her alone, he would never have moved from heaven to come upon earth to redeem mankind. Here's the necessity, the befittingness, that having the mission of Mother of the Word, she embraced and surpassed everything.
Hold on a second. Sometimes there can be some consternation with this word co-redemptrix. But when you think about it from a divine will standpoint, what happened where she repaired all the acts of everyone from Adam to the last man, or fallen Adam to the last man. It's the same thing that the Redeemer did, and it accomplished what they wanted to have accomplished as well. So calling her co-redemptrix in the context of the divine will is completely understandable. It also makes another one of those things that makes complete sense as to why the church would hold Mary in the spot that it holds her in this high level. The church doesn't necessarily, or if it does, it hasn't, put it out there for all the faithful, what Mary has done in the context of being co-redemptrix. But it's just another one of those things that we learned from these readings that say, well, of course it makes sense that Mary would hold this place in the church, or where the church has her. And other than just being Mother of Jesus, which is what a lot of people in their mind would say, well, she's the Mother of God, Mother of Jesus, so that's why the church holds her. No, there's so much more that has happened as we learn from these knowledges that you go, hey, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense.
The co-redemption also, because it says, therefore, in her virginal heart, she had an inexhaustible vein for God and for all creatures. When the divinity found in this virgin compensation for the love of all, it felt enraptured and formed in her at the conception. So co-redemption, if she didn't have that within her, he never would have come down to redeem us.
Right.
So therefore, I don't know why anybody stumbles on the word co-redemption. It's like, but they don't know what we know. So like I said, with this knowledge, you can't get into arguments with somebody who doesn't have this knowledge. Because you're defending heaven and they're defending their pride. So those two never mix. Nor winnable. They have to read these. They have to want to have this knowledge. And we know a lot of people don't want to have this knowledge. They're good where they're at.
And with the knowledge and the disposition.
Comes responsibility.
Responsibility and understanding. And so these things that we see in the church and words that are uttered in the church, and we understand how they came about, where they came from. Because it makes sense.
So we got Nancy, we got Patty, we got George. They're the newest ones, so I'm picking up the three of you, right? Karen, why did I say Nancy? She was here last week, sorry. Okay, Karen, just kidding.
Nancy Drew.
Just kidding. Even if you don't understand it all,
She has
Which-
a sister Nancy.
Huh?
She has a sister Nancy, she said.
Okay.
She'll be coming soon.
she'll be coming soon. Even if you don't understand it all, the thing that you do understand, which is the most important, you repair, redo, reorder for every single soul. To love your neighbor as God has loved us. That's what the rest will come, right? All the holes in the big piece of Swiss cheese, they'll all get filled up, I promise. But it's to take away the gift is given to you. Because God loves us so much that he's giving you this gift. That you just know you repair, redo, reorder, generate and regenerate divine lives for all your brothers and sisters, past, present, and future. That's it. The rest of the knowledge will come, and it'll come deeper and deeper and deeper, and you'll understand more what the saints are saying, and things that you didn't think you'd ever understand come, oh, I totally understand it. Gospels have new meanings to it. The prophecies of the prophets have whole new meanings to them. You're listening to Isaiah through the Christmas season, you're like, oh my gosh, I just want to scream that what he is saying is here, the kingdom's here. You're hearing people like when Jesus returns, and you just want to chuckle, he already has, you don't know, there's just, those holes will get filled for you, I promise you. We've been studying this for years, right, Linus?
Yes.
And the holes are still getting filled for us, so it's just to remember, the gift is to repair, redo, reorder, to love your neighbor as God has loved us. And just fuse yourself throughout the day, start off with a prevenient act. And like God says, I'll give it to you sip by sip. I know where you're at. I know what you know. I know what your soul can handle. And I'll give it to you sip by sip by sip. But I promise you, when you're in a state of grace, ask him any question, he'll answer it. Because I just reading this, he answered several questions that I've had for him. So, but just remember what you're doing. Be in the prime moment, in the moment. What is it? The sacrament of the present moment is given to you now. You gotta live in the present moment. Don't have to worry about past, future, or anything. Just in that prime moment right there, you're doing for all.
And you find yourself,
Thanks,
I
Nancy.
think we all find ourselves in some form or fashion is in excuse me, Michelle mentioned it earlier, but there's constant conversations, and there's a communication that's going on day in and day out just by you're observing something and thanking God for it, or asking God to join you in something. And they can be what in our prior lives we would have thought of mundane, or God's not interested in this little teeny thing that's going on. Yeah, but in fact he is, because he created that act. And he created it with all the love that he has, and he is interested in all of these things. And the fact that we're here trying, I mean, he mentions many times in the readings about how it's not the right word, but excited and how loving and how making feasts they are with, now that this is out and starting to spread, that the Trinity is just, it continuously makes feast. The fact that we're sitting here today, or not only sitting here today, but when we're driving down the road in the car, and when that's doesn't curse anybody out anymore, and she says, she says the prayer for them and whatnot. That reinforces their intention of what this whole thing was supposed to be about. And
yeah, and absolutely. And, I always think about, I work with a lot of evangelical Protestants, and I think they're so good about, speaking about the word, being out there and giving away Bibles and all this kind of stuff. This is our evangelization. This is it. This is, the Bible is a tremendous gift. And of course, God gave us that gift. But I think, oh my gosh, but these people that are finding this on the internet, or, God's giving them the disposition and he's leading them to these things. This is the evangelization that's going to change the world.
That's right.
And it was the purpose of redemption,
Right.
is the completion of redemption.
For sure.
We'll talk about, so.
It's Matthew's Gospel chapter 24, when he says, when the gospel of my kingdom is preached around the world, then the end will come. When the evangelicals and all of our Protestant brothers and sisters understand that this is the gospel of the kingdom and it's being preached around the world, that the end of that era is ending for us to enter the era of peace.
Right.
There's, like I said, we listen to this conversation and you just like, oh, if they only knew.
Right.
Or when they know. You should say
Right.
when they know.
When they know, yeah.
When they know. When they know. They won't
Yeah,
ask
it's not-
questions about
yeah.
Mary anymore. They'll know.
Right, and it's not just our Protestant brothers and sisters, it's our Catholic brothers and sisters as well.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
Everybody.
the balance of mankind.
Our Muslim brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
our Jewish brothers and
Right.
sisters, our Hindu, our Buddhist,
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
even the satanic people and the atheists, and God's got big plans for you because you're all his children.
Absolutely.
You just don't know it.
Yeah.
And he's going to bring you to where every knee bends at the name of Jesus. So therefore, he's got something big planned.
This is Nadira. I just wanted to add on the co-redemptrix for Mama Mary. In the last reading we just read, all our acts are held in Mary. All our acts originate in Mary. And so also all the acts of Jesus would have originated in Mary. So they did the same acts. So as he was redeeming, she was also co-redeeming. And I'm going to stretch that and say, we are also co-redemptrix because all our acts originated in her. So the stretch to say we are also co-redemptrix, it's not that difficult to understand why Mama Mary was a co-redemptrix as well.
And co-sanctifier. And
Yes.
co-creator, because he says that you were with me when all this was happening. When you entered into the primax of God, you were with me doing for all.
But if they can't accept Mama Mary as a co-redemptrix, I mean, to tell them that we are co-redeeming as we repair and we redeem, they will never accept that. So, but we continue to repair and redo, which is what, they did. So.
And part of this is because this is what we've been taught, right? We've always been taught the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then there's that manly view of creation and creator. And then there's Mary. But without the understanding of everything that's going on in this story that we're learning about, you recognize that yes, that it is the Trinity, but there always had to be somebody next, and that somebody next was Mary. And that's why Mary stands above and in front of everybody else. And then Luisa. And so it's again, I go back to as an understanding of why, or maybe a better understanding of why the church has Mary in such a reverential position. That's why. Now we're just coming to become aware more and more and more of the missions, the roles that are being presented and are being managed and played out over the course of time, as to the whys. And again, once you recognize that and have the knowledge, that's why it's so important to have the knowledge, right? Then it's an easy, but for those that don't have knowledge, as we understand, that's why they have a hard time.
Okay, here is the necessity, the befittingness that having the mission of Mother of the Word, she embrace and surpass everything. When an office is unique, it comes as a consequence that one must let nothing escape him. One must have everything under one's eyes so as to be able to hold out that good which one possesses. One must be like a true sun, which can hold out light to all. So it was for me and for my celestial mama. Now your mission of making the eternal will known is braided with mine and with that of my dear mother. And since it is to serve the good for all, it was necessary to centralize this eternal sun of my volition in one creature, so that as unique mission, this sun might let its rays blaze from one alone, so that all might take the good of its light. Therefore, with the decorum and honor of my will, I was to pour into you such graces, light, love, and knowledge of it as the herald and preparation which befitted the dwelling of the Son of my volition. Even more, you must know that just as my humanity, because of its office of Redeemer, conceived all souls, in the same way, because of your office of making my will known and reigning, as you keep doing your acts in my will for all creatures remain conceived in your will. And as you keep repeating your acts in my will, you form so many sips of life of divine will as to be able to nourish all the creatures which, by virtue of my will, are as though conceived in yours. Do you not feel how in my will you embrace everyone, from the first to the last creature which is to exist upon earth? And you, for all, you would want to satisfy, love, please this supreme will, binding it to all, removing all obstacles that prevent its dominion within creatures, making it known to all. And you expose yourself, even with pains, to satisfy the supreme will for all, which so much loves to make herself known and to reign in the midst of creatures. To you, firstborn daughter of my divine volition, it is given to make known the qualities, the value, the good it contains, and its eternal sorrow of living unknown, hidden, and in the midst of the human generations. Even more despised and offended by the evil, and placed by the good at the level of other virtues, as if it were a little lamp, like the other virtues, and not a son, which my will is. The mission of my will is the greatest that can exist. There is no good which does not descend from it. There is no glory which does not come from it. Heaven and earth, everything is centered in it. Therefore, be attentive and do not want to waste time. Everything I have told you for this mission of my will is necessary, not for you, but for the honor and the glory, the knowledge and the sanctity of my will. And since my will is one was to be she to whom I was to entrust it, and through whom I was to make its rays blaze to do good to all. Now, let me tell you, when I read that, I just think my hand would have been like, I mean, I don't even know how she got it written down on paper. It would be so intimidating. And I mean, she didn't have a typewriter. I mean,
Jesus wrote it. He used her hand.
I know, but good golly, that would have been
Yeah.
hard.
She was writing in his writing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I always think about.
But understand what she's saying. God just told her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just I'd be staring at him like, what?
Yeah.
And there are times, I think, where she says,
There are
choose
no
somebody
words.
else.
You did.
Go ahead,
She
choose somebody else, not me.
On the street, 50 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little short little John. You would
Mhm,
no. Oh,
I
yeah.
always think of that.
mhm.
I always think of her reaction here
Mm-hmm.
in the context of, I think it was called Different Strokes, the former or comedy show on TV.
Yes.
Yeah, where Gary and the little, I can't remember what I said, Gary called me, turns and he says, what you talking about, Will?
Yeah.
I have these in her. Why are you talking about me? Look at me.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and if it, she always in the earlier books talks about the oppressive nature of obedience. I mean, that would never shine through more than in this, like, I never got that.
And everybody explains and explains and explains Mama Mary's mission, Mama Mary's mission. She's just like, but it's your mother.
Yeah.
She could have done this too, and they could have left me out. And
Right, because you have to remember, of course, with Mary, she had Jesus there with her
Yeah.
for 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, in the flesh, she could touch it,
yeah,
go snuggling, you know. And whereas Luisa, of course, she's got him, but in a different way. She's like, dude,
yeah, yeah.
give
But
me
he
something
didn't-
here.
But he did come to her
Yeah,
in that physical way that she actually was seeing him.
right.
Yeah.
And that was
And our blessed
because,
mother, yeah.
Yeah,
of that.
So that
was
they would totally
necessary.
true it, believe it.
Yeah,
yeah.
and
had
he
to-
taught her obedience. How many times in the early volumes, that she talks about lady obedience?
Yeah.
Because he's teaching her,
Yeah,
you are obeying this.
yeah.
He didn't give her an out because that she'd been taught obedience, and that priest would be there saying, you're writing this.
Yeah.
So that was who she was obeying. I think,
You need to
those
become someone
early,
that-
yeah,
To
these
allow them
early
to chastise
volumes
us. Yeah.
were critical for creating Cypher,
Mhm.
the way that she had to keep following this path. She couldn't get off. She had to be obedient.
Well, she no longer had pride either.
Yeah.
So a lot of
The
times it
nothingness.
comes across as humble pride or whatever, saying, oh, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
There's no, so me, you don't know what you're talking about, God.
Yeah,
You
right.
can't do this.
Yeah,
I'm saying you can't do this.
right.
Where Luisa would never even, she's just writing what she's writing. She's like, yeah, I mean, who am I to say, no, you can't sanctify me in this way?
Yeah,
So it's like a humble pride
yeah.
where people think, oh, no, not
False
me.
humility, pride,
False
yeah.
humility.
Yeah.
That's a lesson for us to take too. That we have
100%.
initially, as we come into this, we have to come to that understanding that. Because he purposely picked her as someone from the fallen world. To be able to do this, to show the rest of us or tell the rest of us that someone from the fallen world can do this. As long as you say yes, and as long as you believe your point, as long as you believe we can do it, as long as you believe we want to do it.
Well, he chose all of us.
Yeah.
We were chosen, but we had to give our fiat
Mhm.
in the womb of God. Will you be a child of the light and have this mission for you? Will you do it? Yes or no? Okay, I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter to me. I can do it. I'm asking for your participation.
Right.
And so we all gave our yes in the womb of God. Now we played it out, born when we were born. Then when you
Here
come
we
into
are.
the knowledges,
Right.
here you are. But that's that part of where we give a false humility of, no, there's no way he could be asking me to be doing this. Well, of course, get over yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, yes, he can. And know that you are a child of God. He made creation for us. We are made for him. I mean, it really pulls in all of the Catholic stuff that you've ever known in your whole entire life. We were made in the image and likeness. I never understood the likeness. Now I do. I knew we were made in his image through baptism, but likeness, I was like, I'm not sure. If we're all in his image and likeness, so
We tend,
What would Jesus do?
yeah, well, we tended to lump those two words together, whether.
I don't know. I thought, I knew they were separate. I just wasn't sure how it was achieved. But now with these knowledges, we know this is how we become his likeness. So don't have fear in that. As part of what we talked about on Tuesday, like, don't have fear. Know that God can do this. Like, just let God, this has been my motto, let God be God.
Yeah.
And if you have been disposing yourself and you've come into these knowledges and you're like, oh, all he needs is that little bit of he just needs that little bit of fiat and he's in. And then your fiat gets stronger and stronger and stronger, but just a little hesitation meditating fiat, he's in. The Holy Spirit's always around, just waiting for your yes. But that's why I think Luisa at this point, I mean, for all of it, right? I mean, there were times where she was like, why didn't she give this to the Pope? And why, but then at this point, she is like, no, just let me write it down. There's no fear. She's fully united. She knows that she's just letting God be God. And he says, just let me do. And if all of us just let him do, you would be amazed on what you would find that he's doing. Might not always be what you think it is, but it is pretty awesome to watch.
Yeah. It's interesting because it wasn't until I started reading the writings and I realized what I didn't know. Like I never really thought about like.
She died in 47.
Yeah.
She quit writing in
38.
38. Would she take off the last 9 years?
No, she wrote letters.
One day, well, he was told to stop writing by
Yeah.
one of the confessors. I never understood why.
When Jesus ended it.
They took the finger. They took the finger, that was it, yeah.
Something else.
Big guys down there to take the.
I don't know where I got it, but one of her priests she brought back to life.
We came to visit her after he passed away, yes,
Okay.
and told her that every knowledge, he didn't understand it, he's telling her, I didn't understand it, didn't get it, but I knew they were truths and I was able to take those truths with me to heaven and now they're all, I'm aglow, I'm lit up because of the
And
truths.
which priest was that?
I don't know, the second or third confessor was in the beginning,
Okay.
in the early volumes, yeah. And then, of course, Saint Anidli was the one confessor who got it. And when he passed, he lived fully in divine will. So it's Saint
Pronounce
Anidli.
that name again?
Hannibal.
Hannibal, sorry.
Okay.
Hannibal de Francia. And local legal, it's a Levi.
Hannibal de Francia.
Hannibal in Italian is a Levi.
Yeah, sorry. And we know that Pope John Paul II canonized him. And so he fully got it. And so he was one who printed the first 19 volumes. And it says that he had stopped, like he started the. I always get them, I think it's the Rogationist,
Yes,
the Rogationist, I get that confused with the Redemptorists, Rogationist. And then also the Sister of the Divine Zeal, who Luisa lived with for a little bit. He started those two orders, he started many orphanages and so forth. But once he started becoming Luisa's confessor, he stopped all the other stuff and knew that this was it, that this was it. There was nothing else but be her confessor. And so in the one that we just read in 1926, 25 through the years 25 to 26, they're corresponding just continuously because he's just like, tell us more, tell us more, tell us more, don't stop. And so as Michelle says, he was the one who really came in as the confessor who really gave her like the confidence to keep going, keep writing, tell us more, don't leave out a word. This is so important. This is it. There's not a person after you who's going to be writing, you're the writer, so don't stop. So during the years of 1938 to 1947, she wrote many letters, and they're so encouraging. It's just too light of a word of what she's saying. She's just begging people, would you just believe? Just believe. God wants to give this to you, just believe. And Jesus says this, he says many they'll hear it, they'll think it's good, they'll walk away because they just can't believe. They just for whatever reasons, it just doesn't, they just can't give up their disbelief. They can't
They don't have the disposition.
they don't have the, they don't have the-
Michelle read on Tuesday about fear and lack of trust.
exactly.
I personally, I can see how that's warring in me to
Sure.
put that aside.
And if that ever happens, you should immediately text somebody. And I'm always available because I'll be the one to encourage you, like, no, this is possible. And it is. It's what our church is always.
But Satan doesn't want you doing it.
Absolutely. He doesn't
Exactly.
in your mind. But God wants to give you those little hurdles. He wants to know how much you want it,
Yeah.
right? He
Yeah,
test you.
Francis keeps telling her, he's gonna test you. He's gonna test
Absolutely.
you."
he is one to test you.
Part of this, the whole growth of movement is part of this testing, which creates some pain, which is
Yes.
part of the purgation process on this side of death.
He wants to know how much you desire it,
Yes,
right? I mean, it's
but my point was, I'm experiencing this, and I know it's been at least 5 or 6 years that I was really searching and couldn't find it. So, when I picked up the 24 hours and when John talked to me that day in church, I mean, it was like, I felt like this little candle went. But a lot of people weren't at that point yet. So when they hear it, fear and lack of trust prevents them from.
Well, our world has become very accustomed to eat, sleep, and work, eat, sleep, work,
Yes.
eat, sleep, work, entertain, eat, sleep, work, eat, and those of us who are who are called to live this, who must live it, we all have had this like, no, there has to be something more, right? And we're not finding it full, we go to receive the Eucharist, we're going to daily mass, we're praying our rosaries, we're entering prayer groups, and you're just still the same people, eat, sleep, entertain, eat, sleep, and or eat, sleep, work, and that's their, raise the corporate ladder, retire, you like retirement, this retirement thing, or retire, and then we die and we go to heaven, life is good. And you're like, no, there has to be something more. There has to be something more. You didn't come down to redeem us so that we eat, sleep, and work, right? And watch loved ones pass away, and there's got to be something more. It's not what he created us to be. That's what we were all searching for. We were just so hungry for something. And for me, it's just someone just said divine will. And I'm like, oh, what? Where are we going?
Well, and because people, that was part of the do fall. It's not just for people to say yes at the end of their death, to do one act. It's also to all the acts we're doing. The do fall is, I think, is part of disposing others.
Right.
So when people were, these knowledges have been out there for a while. And so then when Mary heard it, she was like, she had been disposing herself, boom.
Right.
That's the do fall. It's not just, it's for the ones of the children of the light to enter into the field.
That's right.
Because none of us knew. This is all new to all of us. Right. And so all of us were doing what we were supposed to do there. But I think in the eternity, right, you have two different realms happening here. We were always doing our acts in the divine will. So then when we were each at our time of June of 2020, when John brought my mom and I into it, it was like, oh, it took, trust me, I was like, wait, what is this? What is this? And a lot of holy cheese going on, and all the holes, a lot of them have been filled. Yes. So to Mary's point, they do get filled. But I think that's part of it too. It's just, it helps those who are disposing themselves. Then when it's said to you, that candlelight goes off and it's like, whoa, wait, now I think I'm onto something.
Yes.
Most of the people tell you that they consecrate themselves to Mary. So they're into some heavy reading.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mumford and description, and what's the next thing? What's the next thing? So,
That's what I'm meaning, but
But
okay, Lord, I'm going to mass every day, and
Yeah.
I'm going to confession once a month, and I'm saying my rosary. There has to be more.
Yeah.
It's your desire.
Right.
And I
It's watching your desire,
They
Karen.
said, well, get active in church, go
Yeah, I
to, get involved in a ministry, and it's like, okay, so.
Yeah, I know.
It's like.
You're not doing it.
We don't know this more.
But the beauty, I think, I'm sorry.
Just saying, we always sense it's more, that's it.
The beauty, I think, is, yes, we said yes in the womb of God, but for somebody like Aaron, who he gets to do a whole lot more acts
Yep.
than somebody in their 40s, somebody in their 50s, somebody in their 60s, 70s, 80s saying yes.
At least we get to go back and do ours.
But we get to go back. Think of how many acts.
say now, Linus. They're all in this, he says that, once you give your fiat,
They're all,
your acts have been turned into divine acts.
I know, but I'm just saying.
but maybe more, how
that-
many more
Yes.
lives he's gonna touch
To
too.
enjoy
Right.
this for so many more
Yes.
years than the rest of us.
Knowledge of it.
That's what I'm trying.
The awareness, like, so, yes. Yeah.
But all your acts, all your
But our
acts, we both died
our
the same
acts can
thing.
be multiplied for infinity, though, even if
Right.
someone's
Yeah.
age.
But
despite
I
their
understand that
age.
what she's saying. She's saying the knowledge of it. I wish I would.
You're aware that. How you can learn.
Married,
Yeah.
you knew about the divine will, a lot less nagging.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand.
he gets to live his peace
Yeah.
that he used to have for so much longer.
Attachment of things of the world for some.
Good luck finding a girl.
Yeah, no.
Some things do get more difficult.
Very funny.
So we
It's almost
started.
Emily's list.
It's a long reading, but.
It is.
I'm okay with it, but here's the long-
The next one. It
Okay,
says
good.
on
Sorry,
the
Leslie.
sheet. Yeah. It's.
It is a continuation, it's a new reading, but it's basically, she says. You know, okay, I've stopped, now I'm gonna restart again.
May 4th.
We could do like Francis does and ask people if they want to continue on, and they always say yes.
Like 15 pages.
No, it's one,
I
yeah.
told my kids are gonna be home
Right there.
too.
Read fast.
All right.
Jan's gonna read because she volunteered.
Oh.
Are you there yet?
I
Jen?
am.
Oh, yeah, you're there, yeah.
Very next.
Right.
Very next reading.
Yes, we are doing the very next reading,
1925.
May 4th.
May 4th, 1925. The mission of the divine will veil the most holy Trinity upon earth and will make man return to his origin. After writing what is written above, I began to do the adoration to my crucified Jesus, fusing all of myself in his most holy will. And my beloved Jesus came out from within my interior and placing his most holy face close to mine, all tenderness, told me, "My daughter, did you write everything on the mission of my will?" And I, yes, I wrote everything. And he again, "And what if I told you that you have not written everything? Rather, you have left out the most essential thing. So continue writing and add, the mission of my will veil the most holy Trinity upon earth. Just as in heaven there are the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, inseparable from one another, but distinct among themselves, forming the whole beatitude of heaven. In the same way on earth, there will be three persons who, because of their missions, will be distinct and inseparable among themselves. The Virgin with her maternity, which veils the paternity of the celestial Father and encloses his power in order to fulfill her mission of mother of the eternal word and co-redemptrix of mankind. My humanity for the mission of Redeemer, which enclosed the divinity and the word without ever separating from the Father and from the Holy Spirit, manifested my celestial wisdom, adding the bond of rendering myself inseparable from my mama. And you for the mission of my will, as the Holy Spirit will make display of his love, manifesting to you the secrets, the prodigies of my will, the goods it contains, to make happy those who will give themselves to knowing how much good this supreme will contains, to love it and to let it reign in their midst, offering their souls to let it dwell within their hearts, that it may be able to form its life in them, adding the bond of inseparability between you, the mother, and the eternal word. So that's how he's explaining and comparing the Holy Trinity to these three on earth, separate, with separate missions, but inseparable. Distinct. It's good. These three missions are distinct and inseparable. The first two have prepared the graces, the light, the work, and with unheard of pains for the third mission of my will, to then fuse themselves all in it without leaving their office, so as to find rest, because my will alone is celestial rest. These missions will not be repeated, because the exuberance of grace, of light, of knowledge is such and so great that all human generations can be filled with them. Even more, they will not be able to contain all the good which they contain. These missions are symbolized by the sun. In fact, in creating it, I filled it with so much light and heat that all human generations have superabundant light. Nor did I consider that since at the beginning of creation there were only Adam and Eve who would enjoy it, I could place the necessary light for them only, to then increase new light as the generations would grow. No, no, I made it full of light, just as it is now and will be. For the decorum and the honor of our power, wisdom, and love. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, right? Power, wisdom, and love. Our works are always done with the fullness of all the good which they contain, nor are they subject to increasing or decreasing. So I did with the sun. I centralized in it all the light which was to serve up to the last man. But how many goods does the sun not do for the earth? What glory in its mute light does it not give to its creator? I can say that because of the immense goods it does to the earth, in its mute language, the sun glorifies me and makes me known more than all other things together. And this because it is full in its light and stable in its course. When I looked at the sun, which with so much light only Adam and Eve were enjoying, I also looked at all the living. And in seeing that that light was to serve all, my paternal goodness exulted with joy, and I remained glorified in my works. So I did with my mama. I filled her with so much grace that she can give graces to all without ever exhausting even one of them. So I did with my humanity. There is no good which it does not possess. It enclosed everything and the very divinity to give it to whomever wants of it. So I did with you. I enclosed in you my will, and with it I enclosed myself. I enclosed in you its knowledges, its secrets, its life. I filled your soul up to the brim, so much so that what you write is nothing other than the outpouring of what you contain of my will. And even though it now serves you alone, and a few glimmers of light serve a few others, I am content because being light, more than second sun, it will make its way by itself in order to illuminate the human generations and to bring about the fulfillment of our works, that our will be known and loved, and that it reign as life in the creatures. This was the purpose of creation. This its beginning, and this will be the means and the end. Therefore, be attentive, because this is about placing in safety that eternal will, which with so much love wants to dwell in the creatures, but it wants to be known. It does not want to be like a stranger, but wants to give its goods and become life of each one. However, it wants its rights, its place of honor. It wants the human will to be put aside, the only enemy for itself and for man. The purpose of my will was the purpose of the creation of man. My divinity did not depart from heaven, from its throne, while my will not only departed, but descended into all created things and formed its life in them. But while all things recognize me, and I dwell in them with majesty and decorum, man alone drove me away. But I want to conquer him and win him, and therefore my mission is not ended. So I called you, entrusting to you my own mission, that you may place the one who drove me away on the lap of my will, and everything may return to me in my will. Therefore, do not be surprised at the many great and marvelous things I may tell you for the sake of this mission, or at the many graces I may give you, because this is not about making a saint or saving the generations. This is about placing a divine will in safety, that all may return to the beginning, to the origin from which all came. and that the purpose of my will may have its fulfillment. Beyond.
Let me go back to, so I read this with Francis Hogan. So there's a little Bible and it's from the Gospel of John, which of course we know is about his divinity because he lived with Mother Mary. But in that part where it says, I enclosed in you my will, and with it I enclosed myself. I enclosed in you its knowledges. Okay, so they have on here that it's from John chapter 14. She says verses 20 to 21, but it's all good. And it's like what Mary was saying, when we read the Gospels now, we're like, oh my gosh, oh wow, there it is, you know. So I'll just kind of start on like verse 18. It says, I will not leave you orphans. I will come to you. In a little while, the world will no longer see me, but you will see me, because I live and you will live. On that day, you will realize that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I in you. Whoever has my commandments and observes them is the one who loves me. And whoever loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and reveal myself to him.
Oh, it's been there.
Mhm.
In the new commandment, love your neighbor
Yes.
as I have loved you.
And he's revealing himself
To
to us.
us.
I hear. That's amazing.
I mean, and you got to remember, the word of God is eternal, right? That's why we can go back to the Old Testament and Isaiah, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's right there. Like, because the word of God, that's why, you know, it's always funny to me how they're like, oh, the Catholic Church, you know, it's got to move with the times, you know, and it's like, does it?
Yeah.
No, because the word of God is eternal. So it is made for all time. God doesn't change. It's all done. He doesn't change. He's not like, oh, well, now, no, it's all done. We know that. We're playing this out in time. The church was established by Christ, the word. So the word doesn't change. So that's why when you read the Old Testament, you're like, oh my gosh, it's right there. And
Yeah.
it's so cool. And wow, he's even better than the Star Wars creator. Like, this is awesome. Like, it's really the same, right? And then you read John and you're like, oh my gosh, like, you know, and so.
That was our sermon today where he said the Catholic Church, because the mass we went to today it's a very, very old traditional mass. And they said that Catholic Church has always been there and it never changes with the times.
Right.
The times will change to the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church has always been the one stronghold, doesn't change with the times.
Because it's eternal.
Yeah, times will change with the
Started by
church, but
Jesus.
right, it will never,
It's eternal.
it
It's
doesn't
the word.
conform to the world. We know that you're in the world, but you're not of the
Yeah.
world. The Catholic Church will never be of the world.
But when you think about that saying, love God, love others as I have loved you, before you get into the divine will, you don't even know how
No,
that's
you don't
possible.
No,
know
you
what that
can't, yeah.
means.
You know,
You
you
don't
don't know how
know
to
how
love
to-
you. No, but you think it's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
But once you realize, once you get into the divine will, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I could do this.
Because it's not you doing it,
Of course,
right? It's God doing it.
Right.
So it's God giving, we're giving God back to God.
Right.
We're giving God to everyone else
Right.
through us as the vehicle, right? Because he wants to live in us, through us, and with us,
Right.
right? I mean, all these things that we've said forever make complete sense now
Right.
of how this is being accomplished. And when you really are living in the divine will, it's nothing about you.
Mhm.
You know that there's no way that you could be loving others as he loves me.
Right.
It's impossible.
Right.
And Satan has twisted the word love. So people don't even know what that means anymore.
Right.
And the only way it's going to be accomplished is to love others as Jesus has loved us, and through this gift of living in the divine will. I mean, that is the only way,
For sure.
because our human will is so knotted up and twisted, and we don't even know up from down. And
Inadequate.
yes, for a lack of better words.
Yes.
That's polite.
Yes.
Well, we're walking on our heads.
Yes.
isn't that-
Yeah.
With that feet in the air.
In dirt and mud.
Right, John?
Yes,
Feet in the air.
finally.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that for all of us who, as Lamess like to say, I always knew there was something else. I always knew there was more. So there was a searching that was going on from that standpoint. that, and there was a restlessness that was accompanying this searching because we were searching for that. Once people find and accept and understand that the tenets of what Jesus is telling us through Luisa, for those that are restless and searching for peace, for restless and searching for meaning in life, for restless and searching in, who am I and why am I here? I mean, those answers, those questions are answered in different ways and perhaps differently than what we thought that, those answers might be or where they might go. But you come to realize that with God and with the knowledges of how he's structured and designed and created all this life that we live in, with these knowledges, you obtain those things.
Yeah,
And they come.
I remember.
You have meaning and you have peace and you don't worry about this and you become detached
And that meaning, you say you have meaning, I can't tell you how many years I would think, well, what is my purpose here? Because there was nothing really that grabbed me. There was nothing. And I remember, yeah, that's right. But I would listen to all the self-help books or the tapes and things like that. And I spent a lot of time on that. But then, like you say, you get to this and it's like, pretty good.
Bingo.
Yes, bingo.
Well, before we wrap up, does anybody on the Zoom call have any questions or comments or anything they'd like to add?
This is Nadir. So in the last line of this reading, it says, "So the purpose of my will may have its complete fulfillment." So do we know exactly what the purpose of his will looks like, or is that the heart of God? The divine will is the essence of God, but how will we know? What do we see when his will has its complete fulfillment?
I think the purpose of will to have its complete fulfillment is that all human beings are in the image and likeness of him.
Yeah.
Because it was how he was
That's a
created.
complete fulfillment. He
Yeah.
fulfills how we were created.
Yeah,
Or what he created us for.
yeah.
I have a question on also that last sentence, kind of, it says the purpose of God's divine will, wait, it's about placing the divine will in safety. Does that mean that the temples in our hearts are to be safe for the indwelling of the divine will?
Yes.
And that all may return to the beginning, The only thing that had a beginning with God was time. There is no beginning otherwise to
right.
God, it's eternity. So the fact that they use the word beginning, that would, to me, tell me that this is the beginning when God created man and with the divine will, so that we could all walk in the cool of the evening with God the Father in paradise.
Yeah.
Well, that's on earth here.
Yeah.
And that's what he wants. He wants that will, that we're having that conversation with God because he's with us and living in us and we're living in him. I mean, it's that beautiful part where we've all been a little jealous, right? Of Adam and Eve walking in the cool of the evening, especially if you live here in Texas in the summer. But that's what we're doing now. And that's all he wants, is to have that safety of the divine will in each of us, so that we're doing that, what we were intended to in creation of man.
To return us to the state of Adam before the fall.
Mhm.
Thank you.
On May in May the 4th, 1925, he says different things to her over time, but May 4, 1925, Jesus says to her, that our will be known and loved, and that it reign as life within the creatures. This was the purpose of creation.
That's what we just read. We just read
Yeah.
that word 1925.
Look at that.
But my version was my version.
Oh, your wording.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
At the end of that.
Different version of it.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, that's May 4th, 1925, what we just read, right?
Yeah.
No, yeah, but when
But his
our
words
version
are-
was a different,
Yeah.
it was.
But
it was
same
Worded different.
thinking, yeah, but that's what we just.
Yeah.
Well, in the sentence above, because this is not about making a saint or saving a generation. I
That was
remember
Right.
lots of, reading the stories of the saints, even Faustina asked Teresa of Lisieux, am I gonna be a saint? You know, becoming a saint was a big.
Yeah,
deal.
really new.
So he's saying, that's the wrong thing. That's the way I took it.
No, it is, because this isn't about making you a saint, this is about doing something,
Right.
that's done. You're sanctified to the.
Yeah.
Of all sanctities, you're prodigy of all prodigies, it's everything, he's illuminated, unified, everything is done, and now. It's greater than that, because the sainthood was, we've said this, purging, purging the soul, illuminating the soul, and then unity of the soul.
Right.
So we had great saints, John of the Cross, who we just
Right.
celebrated this past week,
Right.
Saint Teresa of Avila, so for they would talk about the unity, and they would have mystical experiences. And then they would want to be a saint, they would get to the moment of their death, and they, John, what is that?
Feedback.
Okay,
I'm not sure, and I don't want to meet everybody.
and then they'll, they go on to heaven, but now we get to live heaven on earth. To where we get to do, it's not about making you a saint.
Right.
Maybe you just
Give us
answered that
certificate.
about Louisa. And her
And he did.
beatification.
Oh, yeah, we always say it all the time.
It's
It's
not
not about
making you a
making you a
saint.
saint, it's not about human sanctification. It's about knowledge that you can live in God's will to generate and regenerate divine lives. It's,
She won't need to be made a capital S.
Right, and I never
No.
gave a flying saucer anyway.
No, but I'm saying he
you know,
pretty
it's
much said that.
and he says, when he opens up the heavens and all pilgrim souls, well, we're pilgrim souls, hasn't happened yet. He opens up the heavens and all say, yes, she can live in the divine will, and they'll all see her as, and he says, they'll see the greatest miracle. Like, yeah, plus, they didn't canonize our blessed mother,
Right,
so,
no, but I'm saying, we've
Yeah.
we've spoken
Yeah.
about that.
yeah. We're saying this because the Vatican just halted her canonization.
Touchdown.
Yeah, Pope Francis and them halted her canonization. And you can't release these writings yet, although they're released. Does that make sense? The church cannot, the church
can't
cannot.
Not on a
You
pope
can't
level.
incorporate them.
You just read that this is the true return of the Trinity in our souls. This is the true return of the Trinity in our souls. I mean, our souls have resurrected to how they were created. So we still have a huge separation within our Protestants and everything that's happening around the world. The Catholics were to come out now and say, well, we have this thing called this Book of Heaven and God's return. It would not be well received. And that's why it's rolling out slowly, but it's rolling out, you're receiving it, sip by sip, but it is going around the world. I mean, it's in all countries right now. It's amazing how much South Korea is the one who paid for the first edition of her biography. I mean, it is in some very communist, dark places, China, you name it, the divine will is there. So, but the church will be the one to make the announcement on these writings. And the Pope, there is no way the state of our church that you can really
Yeah,
put
you
these
put that
through.
out there.
But Trani, who's in charge of everything, Luisa and her canonization, because the Vatican gave it over to Trani, because Corrado is in the Diocese of Trani. Trani is also the diocese where the church split between the Orthodox in Rome. So at St. Nicholas, the Basilica of St. Nicholas there. It's also Trani is also the Diocese of Jerusalem. So, and they're the connection to Jerusalem. It's incredible, Trani. Trani is the one who's read the writings.
Yeah, just no matter what.
Don't
keep
sell it.
reading.
Don't make money off of it. Don't you dare make money off of this. This is not a moneymaker. But read. They're the ones saying to read. And don't worry about like Linus was saying, there's different translations. This is God, and God tells us even in the writings, no, man will not change a word. Man will not remove a comma. Man will not do anything. My writings will remain. And we not need to fear if you get a translation off of this website or that website, they're gonna be the same, it's the same meaning, because no one, the other strongholder, why I can say that is Jesus says, when you're reading, I'm standing right behind you, reading it with you. And I will give you what your soul at that time can handle, what it's expanded to receive. So he's not going to let you receive something false on his divinity, as he's pleading with the world like this is the greatest thing, that we want to return you to the way we created you. It's not going to allow false translations or misguidedness and so forth. And if someone does speak something wrong, God says, don't worry about that. As long as they keep reading, they'll self-correct. Meaning he's going to self-correct whatever heresies, or I don't want to say heresy, any falseness or somebody misinterpreted, he'll self-correct them.
That's
But
important. That's a very important comment right there.
Just keep reading. And Trani says,
Keep reading.
read. So although the Pope says no,
Trani, is that a person or a place?
oh, I'm sorry, it's a place, Trani, Italy.
The
The
diocese.
diocese, that covers Carrara, PRA,
We're hoping to go out there,
PRANI.
hoping to go out there.
Especially when your desire is to want this
Mhm.
and to love him. He's not gonna give you anything that isn't of him,
Yes,
Yeah,
right,
because your intention is to love him.
right.
So if you know that's your intention and you're trusting in him, he's just gonna get, if this was not it, we wouldn't be able to ingest
Right.
it or take it in or to love it.
Right.
He would stop it.
Even Pope Francis in 2017 sent his own priest over to the Diocese of Trani. They've had so many theologians, they have combed through every word and they can't find one thing that is wrong, false, or anything. They've all approved them. They just cannot release them. And anybody who's really reading these, even if you're brand new and you're reading things such as this is his true return. This is it. He left in the divine will. He's returned in the divine will. He's here. The church
Fully ready.
cannot release it. He's not fully
Yeah,
ready in the world. The church cannot release that. Are you kidding me?
the wording was from the Archbishop was to the effect that while they've not found anything, there are some ambiguities that need further consideration and study by the church. So that's the ability of creating some more time.
Right.
That for a lot for not only dispositions, but also we know that there are, he tells her in here, and we are confronted ourselves with things that we need to do and things that are the way that he says that they are. And the reality is the church is going to have to figure out how to incorporate that in as it teaches this, as it comes to that point.
It'll be
And how does the church incorporate it? But in the meantime,
Yeah.
there's self-incorporation
Just
going on by
Yep.
all these groups that
Yeah.
are being formed all across the world.
If you read the last day of the Blessed Virgin Mary in the Kingdom, the Divine Will, the last day, day 31, she says, I continue my magisterium in the church today. In other words, Mary's going to tell us when her heart has triumphed, release the writings.
Mhm.
So we know heaven's in control and charge of this, but it's not. The Pope stopping her canonization. For us who was in I received the message from the Diocese of Trani right before I went to Orlando. And when I was there was a big conference in Orlando and 400 people. And they were asking, the audience was asking on the stage, where are we with the canonization? And so when I read it out, people didn't know what to do with it. And then those who've been reading writings explained, like this is a good thing.
Yeah.
This is a sign.
Yeah.
This is huge, because if she were just to be canonized, she would just be thrown on the book. I mean, I've got St. Faustina's diary, but I haven't read it all. I look at it when someone says something, I'll look it up as a reference, but I haven't read it all. And God's like,
I read it, but I didn't understand it.
God's like, this is not just to be thrown on a bookshelf. Because the knowledge is what's changing the world. So the Vatican were just to canonize Luisa and just, you know, you can read her writings.
Casually.
It absolutely is a great thing. It was so significant. And like once like those who had been in the writings for a while, like said it, like the audience, the audience, I guess that's what you call the conference goers, all of a sudden, just like their eyes were open, like, wait a second, yeah. Yeah,
And then he says it right here.
yeah.
Yeah.
It says it
Not
right,
about making
not
you a
about
saint.
making you a saint. It's about something so greater, and
Yeah.
saints even, not even capitalized, I mean, it's just
Mine is.
not about making you a saint.
Mine is capitalized.
I thought mine wasn't.
Not that don't need to go there, but
Yeah.
I mean, but the fact that it's not about making a saint, and now they've stopped the canonization, like,
Yeah.
that's the word.
I mean, he incarnated himself. I don't want to, not in the physical sense like he did Mama Mary, but he's incarnating himself, the word, the Trinity, inside Luisa, inside us. So.
Yeah, you're past it.
Yeah. Yeah, you were virtuous way back in the beginning, remember, 20 years ago? 1906, we were talking about virtues made you a
right.
saint. It's not about making,
No.
it's making you the beatitude of God. It's a big difference.
Well, and to that point, a saint generally is focused on a virtue,
Right,
one.
or certain on one
And
certain,
what,
yeah,
and during those first 10 volumes, what he's ultimately winds up telling her, taking her through all those writings, though, is that you are the operating of the divine will is the culmination of maintaining all virtues.
right.
I am all
You are
virtues. I'm not focused on humility or whatever other virtue I may be. Is that, as Jesus says, I am all virtues. So that's why it's greater than being a saint. So.
Leslie, you were unmuted for a bit. Did you have something to add, or was that not the case?
I did. I want to share a story that I think is so appropriate for today. A week ago, I woke up and it was like, light a candle under your Virgin Mary poster. So I did and went to church, came home. And a dear Protestant friend told me, she said, Leslie, she said, you're the really good Catholic that I want to have this picture that I painted of the Ave Maria shrine from Trinidad, and I want you to have it. So I received that and just am being blessed. Well, they had mitochondrial infraction, and I had, it's called the Widowmaker, and I had it. They rushed me to Pueblo. They're getting ready for surgery, and I just stopped and I looked up and I said, Lord, I said, you know that I don't want to be part of this earth, and I long to be with you, but let your will be done. And so then I had the surgery, was going to be with him. And I woke up, and the minute I woke up, for probably 10 nanoseconds, I said to myself, oh, I'm not in heaven, I'm still at this earth. And then the next nanoseconds was filled with total joy in my heart, with this smile that I couldn't erase from my face. I just want to share this with everybody because I've been doing the divine will 4 years now. I have no sin in it. And what I learned in this synod about surrendering and giving your life to God, and let me tell you, what I've been blessed, and I know I'm excited about it. So I just wanted to share that with you and just tell you how much you have blessed many of the ways and the knowledges and the wisdoms, and it comes out when you need it. The Lord is so good. Amen.
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 Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you for still being here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and call down the kingdom and wrap today's cynical up. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
I seem to have lost the volume on me, so I'm not hearing anything.
We're hearing you.
We hear you, okay, but if you can't hear us, it doesn't matter. She won't hear us.
And those Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, and we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation.
It's blank.
Give us this day, and we forgive, leading us not into temptation. Blessed is the fruit of God. Holy Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, and it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thank you for on Zoom. Just a reminder, it will be the first Saturday in January before we get back together. Everybody have a merry and a blessed Christmas and a happy New Year. Safe and love others as He has loved us.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
everybody.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.